guys, welcome back to LearnDeutsch. Today we are going to talk about die deutschen Fälle, the German cases, the Nominativ, the Akkusativ, the Dativ, the Genitiv. That is it.
Here we are, die deutschen Fälle, with a really cute little quote underneath. Der Dativ ist dem Genitiv sein Tod. The dative is the genitive's death. A very funny book title of some author I don't actually remember, but I will put his name in the description box below so you can find it if you're interested in reading that entire book about the German cases. But it really does show how complicated it can be to think about them. But I am here to hopefully shed a little bit of light on it. So let's look at the overview that we have. And we are going to talk about the following bullet points, obviously, so we have a little idea of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to talk about how important it is to actually learn the cases, what the cases are, the Nominativ, the Akkusativ, the Dativ, the Genitiv, and eventually coming to a conclusion and hopefully being able to answer the question why we really need the cases. Why do Germans actually do this? How important is it to learn the cases? Well, quite frankly, that depends on what your German learning goal is. There's two ways, or there's two major goals, I guess I want to call them, which the first one is the communication part. Meaning to be able to talk and be able to communicate with German speakers and really speaking. Speaking is your goal. Or the more common one, especially if you're going to school, is the goal of being a grammar whiz. The grammar whiz is a person or a student that needs to be tested and quizzed and needs to know extensive knowledge about grammar. If you are a grammar whiz, the importance to learn the cases is obviously undeniably high. You really do need to get it down and you need to know everything that there is to know. If you, however, are the communication goalie, I don't think that really works. The communication guy, the communication is your goal, then you need to not worry. Quite frankly, I always interact with students who are super stressed out about the articles and getting them right and remembering all of them and remembering the genders and all of that stuff. And I'm here to tell you, for communication purposes, they're not that important. Even with getting all of them completely wrong, people will still be able to understand you. It will sound weird to them, but they can still understand you, and I will guarantee you that they will be able to communicate with you still. So what are cases? Cases are, generally speaking, the building blocks of building sentences. To be quite clear here, it doesn't mean that every single sentence always has to have all of the cases, but what I mean by that is that cases are really just some of the building blocks to use for some sentences. And all of the names that they have, like in this example, we have the Nominativ, the Genitiv, the Dativ, and the Akkusativ being the cases, and the Prädikat being the verb, really. These are all Latin words for the functions of the words within the sentence. We're going to get a little bit more into that when we talk about each various case. But for now, just remember that the cases are names for the functions of the nouns within sentences. And when I say sentences, I mean simple sentences. Okay? This does not include having prepositions in a sentence, because prepositions in cases should be a whole entire other video. This right here is really just the basic, which is why I like to call it the building blocks, because it's the fundamental way of making sentences in German. What is the nominative? The nominative describes the subject of the sentence, the noun doing the action, verb of the sentence. It will always agree with the verb ending. There's not really a whole lot that I can add to that because this is really straightforward. the meaning of this of the nominative, what it does, what the thing is. So let's look at some examples. I have one definite article example and one indefinite article example. If you don't remember what the definite and indefinite articles are, the definite article is der, die, and das. The indefinite articles are ein and eine. And the definite article is equivalent to the English the, and the indefinite article is the English equivalent to or an. Just as a little side note. Okay, so in the example, der Mann kauft, the man buys, or ein Mann kauft, a man buys, we have the nominative, or the subject of the sentence, right in the beginning, right before the verb. In German, we actually just need those two elements in a sentence. Everything else can be added if necessary, if you want to. Most of the time, of course, you do. But with just the nominative and the verb, we're good to go. That's all we need. What does that mean for the articles? So, again, nominative is pretty much the baseline. So these are going to be the articles that you learn with studying your vocabulary. You can either study it in a way where you remember what is male and what is female and what is neutral, and so on. But usually, most teachers do it in a way where they write the noun with the definite article. So for example, der Mann. So nominativ, or the subject, means it's either der or ein. Der or ein Mann for the male. Die or eine Frau for female. Das or ein for neutral, and then we have the plural. If you remember correctly, indefinite articles don't have a plural, just like in English. We can say a child, but we can't say a children. All right, what is the accusative? The accusative is the direct object of the sentence. It is directly affected by the action. Again, let's look at an example. Der Mann kauft den Hund. Der Mann kauft einen Hund. Der Mann is still the subject of the sentence. Den Hund is now the direct object, or the accusative of the sentence. Same thing over here. Der Mann subject and einen Hund is the accusative, the direct object. All right, so just to really point it out there, den Hund is completely and directly affected by the action that is happening. And remember, the action and the subject, or the verb and the subject, always go together. This is the action. The man is buying. What is the man buying? It is buying the dog, or a dog. All right, it is directly affected by the action. For the articles, this means that the male changes from der to den, just like we see it up here, den. And in the indefinite, it changes from ein to einen. The good news for the accusative is that none of the other genders change. Only the male, or the männlich, changes. It is still die and eine, it is still das and ein, and it is still die Menschen. So for example, if we would put in, for example, the child, and I know this is a terrifying example, but just for demonstration purposes, we would say der Mann kauft das Kind, or der Mann kauft ein Kind. So it is still the same article. Moving on to the dative. What is the dative? The dative is the indirect object of a sentence. It is indirectly affected by the action. The example that I have here is der Mann kauft der Frau den Hund. Der Mann kauft einer Frau den Hund. Again, der Mann, still nominative, still subject, still doing the action. Den Hund is also still the accusative. It is still directly affected by what the man is doing, by the action. Now, der Frau is the indirect object, or the dative, or the dative, and is thus now in front of the accusative. And the translation for this sentence would be, the man buys the woman, the dog. Now in English that sounds really, really weird. In English we would just use a preposition. The man buys the dog for the woman. So in German, the dative takes care of that. We don't actually have to add a preposition if we don't want to, which is exactly what we most of the time do. We just say, der Mann kauft der Frau den Hund. All right, so what does that mean for the changes in the articles? Unfortunately for the dative, all of the articles change. I chose the example of the Frau here, which is the female or the weiblich. And as you can see from the Nominativ to the Dativ, it changed from die to der. If I would put in another man, basically, if I would say, der Mann kauft dem Mann den Hund, or der Mann kauft einem Mann den Hund. So der changes into dem. Same with the neutral. So if we would put in again the child, der Mann kauft dem Kind den Hund. Der Mann kauft einem Kind den Hund. Okay, and there is actually a special case for the plural. So if we would want to say that the man buys the dog for the children, we would have to say, der Mann kauft den Kindern den Hund. So in the plural, not only do we change the article, we also add an N to the plural noun. In this case, I used Kind. The plural would be Kinder, and in the dative, it would be den Kindern. Coming to the last case, the genitive. What is the genitive? The genitive has the very simple function of signaling possession, usually of the nominative. All right, let's look at what that means. Der Mann der Großmutter kauft der Frau den Hund. Boom. I know it sounds ridiculous in English, because in English it would literally just mean the man, the grandmother, buys the woman the dog. Absolutely makes no sense. All right, so, however, because der Mann here is still the subject or the nominative, den Hund is still the Akkusativ, der Frau is still Dativ, and now der Großmutter is the Genitiv. Now I used arrows specifically to really point this out. Der Mann der Großmutter in English really means the man of the grandmother, which basically would be the grandfather, right? But we can say it like this in German. We don't have to say of, von. Now, when we actually talk, we would probably still say der Mann von der Großmutter, just because it would be much, much easier for us to do that. But for the very clean purposes of the grammar right now, I don't want to go into detail with prepositions, because prepositions change the game, all right? They really do. So without prepositions, we will use the genitive here. All right, so the articles for the genitive change also, almost all of them. Der changes into des and also adds an S to the end of the word. So again, if we put der Mann des Mannes kauft der Frau den Hund, we are saying the man of the man buys a dog for the woman. All right, the same thing happens for the neutral. For the female, it just changes into der, and there's no S needed at the end. And for the plural, also just der, no need for any additions to the end of the noun. All right, so coming to the conclusion, because we just detailed all of the cases. Hooray, hooray, we're finally done. The conclusion / why do we need cases? This is probably the most important question that you were thinking about, because you're like, why on earth should I know the cases? Again, grammar whiz, gotta study. Communicator, maybe not so much. But here are the reasons why we actually want to use correct grammar, correct cases. If you use the correct cases, it clearly identifies each noun's function within the sentence. If we remember, we have the examples of the dad of the grandmother buys the dog for the children, or whichever the example was. In English, this you can't say that the dad, the grandma, and so on and so on. So in German, because we change the articles, it makes clear sense to us. It's clearly identified that the grandmother here would be the possessive or the genitive. Another point is that because of that, we can emphasize by putting the most important part in the front. So if we wanted to emphasize that we were buying the dog, we would actually start with the dog. If we wanted to emphasize for whom we were buying the dog, we would start with the woman in our example. If we wanted to emphasize, there will be more things. If we wanted to emphasize the place, the location, how something is done, we put it in the beginning. Again, because we clearly identify each noun's function, this is even possible. If this was not a thing in the German language, we would not be able to say the same sentence in about 3 to 5 different ways by just switching whatever we find most important in the front. All of this being said, remember that unless you're trying to become a grammar whiz, you don't need to think about the articles as much. Communication is still possible even without clearly identifying each noun. Alright guys, so this was the detail. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon for another edition of a LearnDeutsch German learning video. Leave some comments below, please subscribe, and I hope you will have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here and listening to me rambling along. Have a German day. Tschüss!